let's hit it.
And welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
All right, here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and today is a live show, so if you want to call in with questions or comments regarding our topic today, please feel free to do that. The number is 323-870-4602. Now, before I introduce you to the founder of Purple Vine, which offers Alzheimer's and dementia caregiver support, I'm going to do just a few shout-outs. And first, I always like to shout out to the Mark Arneson Band for allowing us to use their song Clarion Call. You can download that on any of your favorite music platforms. And for those of you that are new, Alzheimer Speaks is about sound information, not just sound bites. Our goal is to raise all voices, big and small, around the world because we are so much better together. And I surely know that because my own mom lived with dementia for 30 years. We also just launched our updated website, so please check out alzheimerspeaks.com. We have one whole page of free educational resources, and there you can find out about our support groups that we do, dementia chats, which are videos, dementia map. There's just all kinds of stuff there, tools you can download and so forth. And then if you haven't heard about Saltbox TV, please check that out. That is a new online streaming service that is free, and it was especially designed for seniors. I also just received in my email yesterday, there are a couple of groups that I wanted to announce. One is Women of Faith Caregiver Support Group. That meeting is held by Zoom every fourth Saturday of the month at 2 o'clock Central Time. And you can get a hold of them by emailing them at emailing them at womenoffaith007@gmail.com. And there is also another exciting thing that this group, in collaboration with others, is rolling out, and it's the Journey to Cross Ministries with Pastor Jeanette Jordan. And so they are going to be doing a service Sunday, July 31st, at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and you can also contact that same email that I gave you to get more information on that group. And then, of course, the Memory Camp at Moon Beach still has openings for August 15th to the 18th. This is for people living with dementia as well as their families to just go experience a wonderful, relaxing set in nature and meet other like-minded people that are dealing with the same thing. You can call them at 715-479-8255. Now, we are going to go ahead and hear about the footbar walker through the Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner, and we will be right back and start having our chat with Debbie.
I love the footbar walker, and let me tell you why. It is the option for my toolbox that I've been waiting for. Let's be honest. There are some clients who, despite our best rehab efforts, just aren't able to return to performing a sit-to-stand transfer on their own. Now I can offer my caregivers an easier, safer option that doesn't involve hoisting their loved one up from a sitting position. I don't recommend this walker for all of my clients, but I do recommend this walker for those caregivers looking for an easier, safer option with transfers. I would also encourage other therapists to add this walker to their toolbox. It's kind of like having my own mobile parallel bars for the client to pull up on. Whether it's a family caregiver at home helping a loved one with Parkinson's or dementia, CNAs in a long-term care facility assisting their patients, or therapists adapting to client and caregiver-specific needs, we now have a very safe and effective option to offer in the footbar walker. Check this product out at thefootbarwalker.com. That's it for today from Adaptive Equipment and Caregiving Corner. Have a great day, and don't forget, if you can't do it, adapt it.
That if you haven't checked out that company, well, actually both of them, please go ahead and do that, because they, the Adaptive Caregiving Equipment, they have so many phenomenal resources, and the footbar walker is just one of them that you can tap into. Now we are going to be talking with Debbie Compton, who is a 3-time caregiver and an author of 9 books. And, you know, we're not going to stop there, because she is also a certified caregiver consultant, an advocate, a community educator with the Alzheimer's Association, and keynote speaker. Debbie's mission is really to empower caregivers to live their best life. So welcome, Debbie. I'm thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Lori. I'm happy to be here with you.
Well, we're going to have a fun conversation, but first I always like to ask people if they've been personally touched by dementia, and I said you were a 3-time caregiver, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about that, and we'll dive a little bit deeper.
Yes, it has definitely affected my life. My grandparents, they actually said that my grandmother was senile, which now we know that she had Alzheimer's. But back then, they really didn't have a good definition and testing and things, and so senile was the term that they used. And then my dad developed Parkinson's, and my mother developed vascular dementia, and my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's. So it's definitely touched, impacted, like a bus ran over my life.
Yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. What made you decide to step into the role of caregiver in each of those roles?
It wasn't on my to-do list. It's just, as so many caregivers that we talk to, it was not in the game plan. But this is kind of what happens. We have our plan in mind, and I was in upper-level management, traveling coast to coast, leading a team nationwide, and just had everything planned out the way it was supposed to be, and God said, nope, that's not it. So they had more issues, and I became a full-time caregiver. The need was there.
I didn't sign up for it either. It wasn't on my wish list or my to-do list. In fact, I didn't even know that it really existed. And I found, and I don't know if you found yourself doing this, but I worked in residential real estate for like 25 years, and so I dealt with a lot of people going through transitions. And I always imagined my parents being 10 years younger, so that I never had to deal with the concept of thinking about what about if they get older. And then all of a sudden, mom's got dementia and dad's got brain cancer, and well, that blew that theory out of the water really quick.
Yes, and that's kind of the way with us, too. I mean, we were busy. You're wrapped up in your own life. And like I said, I was traveling, and so, but I was on the East Coast, and my dad, who had low blood pressure and Parkinson's, accidentally took my mother's pills, and she had high blood pressure, and so he was nearly comatose and had to be rushed to the hospital. And then I was on the other coast, and my mom passed out at the Daily Living Center from a sudden blood pressure drop, and she had to be rushed to the hospital. And so those were really stressful times, because I could not get there right away, and I felt like I really needed to be, so there was a lot of stress. And then I was in Colorado when my mother-in-law, who we knew was having some issues, but we really didn't realize how much, because she lived in a little town about an hour and a half from us. And I think, as most people can probably relate, when someone is starting to have these issues and have problems, they hide it. They don't want you to know. And so she hid it really well when we would come in to visit. And but I was in Colorado, and she locked herself out of her house in the middle of a snowstorm. and did not have the cognitive abilities to walk next door to the neighbor's house. Instead, she sat in her car for 8 hours until her daughter got off work. So that was a huge wake-up. Yeah. I mean, that was a huge wake-up call for us. It's like she could have so easily died right there. So that's when we had to step back and evaluate and go, okay, everybody's getting worse. We have to do something. So, you know, voila, instant caregiver.
Wow. You know, we had a similar situation in our family where my dad had brain cancer, so he's in a weakened state. My mom had dementia, and they were going out one winter. They lived at the lake at the end of the peninsula, and they couldn't travel anymore. So they were really the only ones left on the peninsula. And my mom slipped and fell on the ice. And I won't go into the whole story because it's actually kind of comical. And I talked to them probably 3 or 4 times a day. I was 2 hours away, so not across, you know, the country, but still, you know, felt kind of lost. And we didn't hear about that fall until August. And my dad tried to, you know, kind of hide it and, you know, from all of us. And my mom just innocently was rubbing her knee. And I said, what happened? And she had this clarity of the moment and said, oh, I fell this winter. And I'm thinking, well, how do I not know that? You know, but again, it was hiding stuff because Dad didn't want us to know how serious things were. And that was a huge, huge wake-up call for us as well. It just, it's really a difficult thing to maneuver between your own personal denial and then them hiding it. And it kind of seems like that's everybody's story initially. Is that what you found as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I didn't know enough. And so I felt like in the beginning that Mom just wasn't trying hard enough to remember. And I'm like, Mom, focus. You know, if you would just pay attention and focus, then you'd remember this. And that's what my dad's response to her was as well. He just wrote it off because she just wasn't paying attention. She was doing something else, and it's no big deal. But because my mom was the first one diagnosed, but she was high functioning, she just, you know, didn't remember things and would misplace things and couldn't figure her checkbook, but then she never could. So it really wasn't an indicator for her. So there are lots and lots of signs that I now know that I did not know then. And so having gained all this knowledge and gone through all this training and certification courses and things, then I look back and go, oh, my goodness, yeah, this was going on for a long time. But I didn't know all the warning signs, so I didn't recognize it. And none of us did.
Yep. Well, and the conversation, it is elevated, but it's still way too muted. And we have to have more of these everyday conversations going on so that people can look. Because I know even, and again, you know, my mom lived with it for 30 years. She's been gone since 2014. The doctor kept pushing hers off to menopause, even though my mom would ask all the time, and he would just poo-poo it. And you know, so you're relying on that expertise, and it still isn't always there. Do you find that a lot of families have a hard time getting diagnosed? And did your family have a difficult time getting diagnosed?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they did. My mom wasn't diagnosed for a long time. They just, the same thing, you know, oh, it's menopause, oh, she's not paying attention, it's this or that. It's just, you know, it's no big deal. And my dad, but Mom didn't know anything was wrong with her either. So that's a different situation. She still has no clue that there's anything wrong with her, and she's had vascular dementia for 21 years. Okay. So, but oh my goodness, I have to tell you, I had her in the doctor's office one day, and we're sitting in the doctor's office. I hand her a magazine to give her something to do, and she starts reading warning signs of dementia. And I'm going, oh, no. And she's reading it out loud. So everybody in the whole place sitting around can hear this, right? Yep. And so every single sign that she's reading, she has. There's not a doubt. She's got it severely. She reads all the way through. And, I mean, I'm a Christian, so I'm praying, oh, God, help me. Help me. I don't know how she's going to react. I don't know what she's going to do. Is she going to burst into tears? Give me the right words to say. help me deal with this. And so she finished reading, and she closed the book up, and she just sat there. And I said, Mom, what do you think about that? And she looked up, and she said, well, thank God I don't have it. And so we just laughed, and I said, yeah, that's good, you know. And then she started reading the article again at the beginning because it was brand new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there really isn't, you know, people think, well, there's got to be something you can say or something you can do, but you're not going to change their mind. And, you know, people always talk about stepping into their reality, which you did do, because no sense getting them all upset and things.
Right. Well, when they get upset, it makes it worse, and it makes the disease progress faster. And I really think that's why Parkinson's took my dad so much faster. It was 7 years from the time we got the diagnosis until he passed. But he knew something was wrong, and it bothered him, and he was worried about it, and he was stressed about it. And so that makes the disease go faster. My mother-in-law had Alzheimer's, and she was aware that things were wrong, that she couldn't remember things, and it bothered her, and they worried about it. My mom is a happy little camper bouncing around, you know, she has no idea there's anything wrong with her. And it's been 21 years. So, yes, don't add to the stress. Live in their reality. If they say the sky is, you know, whatever, bright purple and pink, who cares? Yeah, agree with them. It doesn't matter, and you don't want to make the disease go faster. So, you know, the monkeys are in the tree by the front door. Yep, they sure are. Well, let's go in the house now. You know.
Yep. Let's get away from
them.
Yeah, before anybody. Yes. And it's such a difficult thing for families to grasp, though. To learn to be playful and creative and calming. They don't understand. I really don't think they understand how crazy they can make things and amplify, you know, the disorientation by trying to correct instead of, you know, being compassionate in terms of how they care. But once they get that, it's such an eye-opener. It's a huge
relief for everyone involved, because what good does it do to argue with them? And especially, like, Dad had hallucinations and delusions. I had never been around anyone who did that before. And when he told me the aliens were digging a tunnel from the mailbox and coming up into the house, I had no idea what to say or how to respond. And so I started researching the web. I was looking for, you know, information on how do I deal with this and what can I do to reduce the occurrence of this happening again. And I found precious little. I found a lot of information telling me what was going on in his brain, but, you know, this is real talk. So I'm going to tell you, I couldn't care less what was going on in his brain. I wanted to know, how do I deal with it? And I had trouble finding it. And so that's what caused me to later on write the first book with practical tips and information. So.
Well, that, you know, before we get into your books, I wanted to ask you, you know, did you feel prepared to be a caregiver? And if not, how the heck did you get prepared? And, you know, because you want to help them, but you need to help yourself first. And, you know, how did you deal with all that?
Oh, my goodness. Did I feel prepared? No, not at all. Because just an example I was telling you about, you know, it was just bizarre. And, you know, knowing how do I react when he takes a ball bat to the chair to beat the alien that isn't there? And so it's just bizarre behavior that I had no clue what to do with. But I was blessed in the fact that in my business life, I did training and development. I did problem solving. And that's how my brain works, is I feel like, you know, if there's a problem, there's a solution too. We just don't know what it is right now. So we need to dig harder until we find it. And let's come up with it. And that's my whole take on life, is that there is a solution. Let's find it. And so that's the way that I approached the caregiving as well, because I had no idea the bizarre behavior that I would encounter with the three of them. And particularly with my mother-in-law with Alzheimer's, we moved her in with us the last year of her life. And that was just, it was crazy. It's really hard to believe, because she was this sweet and kind, precious little woman, never said a bad word, didn't raise her voice, never spoke ill of anyone, just a real little sweetheart, you know. And all of a sudden, looking at me, is this little woman throwing things at me, hitting me when I'm trying to help pull her pants up, cussing me. I mean, it's like you seem like you're a liar or something, because people just can't fathom behavior coming from that person. But I'd like to insert here, too, the thing for caregivers really to remember is it's not that person. It's the disease. Keep your memories, your fond memories. My mother-in-law was precious and sweet and an angel. The behavior that I saw that last year of her life was not her. That was a disease. That was coming from the fact that if anyone has any form of dementia, 2 parts of your brain are dying. They're not just shrinking. They're not just getting smaller. They're dying. And so they're not trying to give you a hard time. They're having a hard time.
Yep.
So we just, walk a mile in their shoes. It's tough.
It really is, and I think sometimes we get so self-absorbed, we forget how difficult it is, for the person that we're caring for, and that is just such a critical matter to understand, and trying to be fitting in all the time. I mean, we've all been in those positions where we haven't quite fit in, and we know that people aren't understanding us, and we're not comfortable. But that's for a short period of time. Even if it's a meeting and it's a couple hours long, it's like, you're getting out of there. But with dementia, you're not getting out of there. This goes on.
There's no escape hatch.
4, 7. And we all know how exhausting that is. So for me, that was really helpful for me to remember, just thinking how scary and exhausting some of this stuff that my mom was dealing with and others must be. And again, like you said earlier, when we are adding stress to the situation, we're actually increasing their symptoms. And so many times people don't understand that either. Now, you have written so many books. My jaw just dropped going, where did you find the time? And where did this all come from? Or have you known since you were little you were going to be, an author of many, many things?
No. Nope. That wasn't on the game plan either. I thought that at some point in time I might write a book, but I thought it would be on recruiting and funny stories that, during job interviews and things like that, because people say crazy stuff when they don't have dementia. But no, what happened was I had my mother-in-law with us in our house the last year, and at the very end I had hospice come in to help me. And they saw some of the things that my husband and I had created to keep her safe, and they saw the bed alert system that we created and the door system to keep her inside and the clothing things that we did. And they said, well, where did you read about this? And like my jaw dropped. What? I didn't read about it anywhere. I created it. It's called survival. Well, the traditional things that I found did not work. And so I had to create something that would work in our particular situation. And so that's how we came to this. And so the little hospice nurse said, other caregivers need to know about this. This would help other people so much if they only knew what you've done. And that really hit me. It really stuck into my heart. And I prayed about it a lot. And then I realized, okay, this is what I need to do. At that point in time.
Oh, did we lose you? Hello.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, I don't know what happened. Okay.
Lord only knows. Technology at its finest,
Oh, I know. I'm not sure where you dropped off either. So, but my... my mother-in-law was here and wasn't doing well. They were telling me people needed to know about this. So I spent a lot of time in prayer about it, and that's why I wrote my first book, Caregiving, How to Hold On While Letting Go. But I could not write it right then because I still was a full-time caregiver for my mom. And my mom was living with my younger brother, but I was taking care of all of her, medicine and doctor visits and all that sort of thing. And then he was staying with her through the night and taking care of the supper and that sort of stuff. So praise God for family. He was a big help. And but after my mother-in-law passed, I went through something crazy that I'm sure if there are any caregivers on the line that have experienced when their loved one passes, you're all of a sudden at a loss. It's like, what do I do now? That person was my world. I did everything for them, and I focused solely on them, and now they're gone. What do I do? And so that's where my answer was, it's time to write this book. So I wrote the book with practical tips, and it tells steps and stages as well, but it gives you practical advice. If you're thinking about getting in-home health care, here are some questions you need to ask. If you're thinking about a nursing home, this is what to expect. These are questions to ask. If you're looking at an assisted living, all these things, because I know when I was faced with those situations, I didn't even know what I didn't know. I didn't know what questions I should have been asking. So I don't want other people to be caught flat-footed like I was. I want them to be able to have an easier time. And so my whole mission is to empower caregivers with the tools that they need in order to live a less stressful and a happier life.
How nice is that? I wish you were around, when I started my journey. I, too, was just lost. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. And like you, I was kind of that fix-it person and problem solver. And so that's kind of what just took over, was kind of my natural piece of, okay, we're going to make this better. How are we going to make this better? There's got to be a way to make this situation better for all of us. Yeah. And it's amazing how many, services, support, and tools, books, products that have been developed by people in the trenches. It just fascinates me every flipping single time I talk to somebody, because I think, oh, thank God people are stepping up and stepping in, because what would we do if we didn't have people like that in the world? It's really kind of a scary thing, I think, to not know about that.
Especially since the baby boomers are aging, the number one risk factor for getting Alzheimer's is age. We're living longer. The baby boomers are all aging. We're getting ready to have an explosion, and we need to be prepared. And so the good news is there's a lot of little companies being formed right now, too, that are supporting caregivers and forming networks to help people stay at home longer, and just all sorts of great services, like you said, from people who have been there and recognize the need and then stepping up to meet that need. So, it's together. Together we can do this. It takes a community. You can't caregive by one-on-one.
Exactly. Can you highlight for people the types of books that you've written, because they're so diverse?
They are. Well, and that came about because I'm a very family-oriented person. And so the first one was to help caregivers, caregiving, how to hold on while letting go. All my books are on Amazon, by the way. And then the second one, I was over coloring at the Daily Living Center with my mom, and she colored this little dog blue. And this lady started yelling at her. And I was just, my first instinct was, stop yelling at my mom, but she's got her own set of issues. I controlled my tongue. We got through it. But my mind is, okay, we got to solve this problem. I'm not going to have this happen. What if this happens when I'm not there? So I created Color Me Calm. And it's original mandalas that I created, because there is no right or wrong. You can color them whatever color you want. Let your creativity soar, and no one can tell you it's wrong. So I made that for my mother. Then my dad was a preacher, and so Scripture brings us comfort. And so I bought a program and figured out how to get a scripture in the middle. And so then I wrote Faith Lives Here. And it has a Bible verse in the center or an inspirational quote, and then it has original mandalas all around the outside with the same idea that there is no right or wrong. Just color it whatever makes you happy. And so I did that, and then she'll read that Bible verse like 30 times while she's coloring that page, and it brings her calm, it brings her reassurance, it makes her happy. So it's a win all the way around. And Mom loves to read, and I wanted to keep her reading because it keeps the brain engaged with the words and helps them stay connected longer. So reading is a great tool. If you have someone with dementia, keep them reading. But Mom was having trouble with her eyesight and couldn't read the small print. She was having trouble following plots and couldn't remember main characters and things. So then it became a struggle. So I, again, prayed about that. What can we do? How can we fix this? And I was thinking on it. Well, then that was when my dad had passed away. And so I went over and I was going through his things, and I found his briefcase. And in his briefcase, I found a whole bunch of these old church bulletins. And the funny thing about that is Dad pastored small country churches. And so if you know about small country churches, if there's a job that no one wants to do, the pastor's wife gets to do it. So, and my mom became the bulletin maker. When she had 4 teenagers run around the house at home, she had a typewriter, no spell check, no autocorrect, none of that good stuff. And so she's typing a bulletin. Well, I could only imagine. You get 3/4 of the way down the page and you make a mistake. I'm looking at it going, is it really that bad? Do we really need to change it? Well, that's what Mom did too. And so Dad had kept a ton of these bulletins, and I pulled them out and I was reading them, and I'm just dying laughing. I'm like, these are hilarious. This is perfect. So that's why I created Sunshine for the Soul, and it's S-O-N, Sunshine for the Soul. It has one Bible verse one Bible verse, and then it has one inspirational quote, and that's from everybody from Judges and Billy Graham to Dr. Seuss. And then it has one funny story, almost exclusively from our life, and a whole lot of those are bulletin bloopers. And so you can start, that pattern repeats itself all the way through the book. So you can start at the beginning, the middle, or the end. It doesn't matter. And it's always going to make you laugh and bring you joy and brighten your day. It's just a short, small, little, quick read with big, large print so that Mom could read it. And so that's why I created that, Sunshine for the Soul.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And then when I had to move her into a nursing home, which broke my heart, but when she was passing out and was heavier than me, and it was not a good situation. And so I used that as incentive for the nurses and aides. When I saw someone being extra kind to Mom or going out of their way for her, I give them a copy of the book. Like, here, thank you, I appreciate you. So then it became a challenge to see who all could get the next book. So, so it was a good motivator.
Oh, that's neat. That's really neat. Well, I love the variety of the books and why you chose, to do them, and it sounds like the simplicity behind each of them in terms of what they have to offer somebody, because I think sometimes some books are so complicated they overwhelm families in need, and that is not, in my opinion, what they need any more stress. They just need ease and knowing that somebody else out there really understands what the heck they're talking about and understands what the needs are without even having to ask, because they don't even know the questions they should ask.
Right.
Because you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. And as a caregiver, you can develop a plan, and it might work great in the morning and not at all in the afternoon. Or it might work not at all in the morning, and you just don't know. It can work great for 2 days and then never work great again. You don't know. So you need multiple plans. Well, I have 2 brothers and a sister, and we handle, for example, Mom's repetition, we handle it 4 different ways. Each of us has our own style. And so I put all 4 of our styles into the book. That way you don't just have a plan A or a plan A and B. You got A, B, C, D. So you have options to try. And it's important to me, I don't talk down to anybody. I messed up. I'm the first one to stand in line and say, hey, Sometimes I blew it, but because caregivers need to learn to take it easier on themselves. We're so hard on ourselves. We tend to expect this perfection, and it's not going to happen anymore. You have to let go of the perfection and be thankful for the moments that you still can enjoy with your loved. You know, be thankful for what you've got, because it's a horrific disease, and this is pretty sad, but it's just going to get worse. That's the reality. So be glad for what you have today, because it's going to get worse.
Yeah, and you don't know at what pace either. And so, and that's one of the things everybody wants to know. Well, you know, what's the plan? How do we set up? Well, good luck figuring that one out, because everybody's different. And, you know, it doesn't follow this linear line at all. It kind of jumps up and down. And, you know, I also found from talking with people with dementia, which I found really interesting, they say no matter, you know, what chart you use, if it's 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 7 as far as stages, they tell me over and over again, they go through all the stages every day. They just don't tell their care partners because they don't want them to worry. But they say they're like emotions. You don't just stay in one lane all day. You know, someone cuts you off in the car or says something rude and it ticks you off and it changes your mood. And you know, just little things like that. And we're so good at blaming the disease, and sometimes it's just life. It's just life that gets in the way. And so I've always found that really interesting in and of itself. I do want to remind listeners, if you do have a question or a comment or a story that you want to add to the conversation, you can call in at 323-870-4602. That is 323-870-4602. I know so many people listen after the fact, you know, just because of the podcast variables that they can do, but I like to give people that opportunity there. Of your books, Debbie, is there a favorite that you have, or does it depend on what you're going through at the moment?
It depends on what I'm going through. And one benefit that I hadn't even considered or thought about at the time, I've got a girlfriend going through chemo, and she mentioned to me how she spends so much time and doesn't have anything to do while she's doing chemo, so she likes to, you know, she was thinking about starting doing adult coloring. So I was like, aha, and I sent her a couple of books, and she just absolutely loved them. So it's not just for caregivers and care receivers, but it can be for people in a situation like with the chemo where they have to be still and not move around and stuff. So, and it helps to unwind. I like the fact that you can take one pattern, one page, and duplicate it and color it 2 different times, and it looks totally different. Just a lot of that is affected by your mood, by the colors that you choose and the color palettes and things. So you can still create something fun and something different, and it's a stress reliever. I forgot to mention, I wrote Write to Remember. That's WRITE, Write to Remember, which is a journal, and it is a big, fat journal. It's not a little skinny one. And it can be, if you don't write but 1 or 2 lines, then it can be a 5-year journal, because I give you a full page for each day. And it has some little inspirational quotes scattered throughout it and a couple of small pictures and different things like that in it as well. But I did that because journaling helps you as a caregiver to release those emotions and to let go of that stress. And also when you're trying to decide and you're trying to figure something out, writing it down can help you think through it and see it more clearly. The other thing that was the reason I wrote it is because I wrote down, and I had encouraged caregivers to do this, write down the funny little things that happen, because those will bless you later. And then you can look back and laugh. You can remember the times of laughter that you had, even though you're going through this horrific disease. Funny things happen. So remember, focus on them.
Well, and you have to laugh during this disease, or you're going to drive yourself just crazy. And to me, I think that's one of the biggest things that people give away is, you know, and to me, that's one of the most precious things in any relationship is that laughter. And it's like, so I always tell people, don't let it go. You know, hold on
Right.
to that.
Right.
Hold on to that. It's just so very, very precious and so important. And it changes your body chemistry, and it lightens things. It puts things into perspective. I mean, there's just so many wonderful things that happen through that whole process of laughter. Do you have any silly moments, like, with either your mom or dad or your mother-in-law that just stick out in your head?
Oh, my goodness. I have so many. I mean, so many. One day, for my dad, he lost his dentures. We couldn't find his dentures. We looked high and low. We looked all through the entire house. Could not find the dentures anywhere. And I knew they had to be somewhere in the house. And so finally, I mean, we live in Oklahoma, and so we drink sweet tea. So finally I'm like, Dad, let's just sit down and have a sweet tea, and let's relax a little bit and let's think about where we didn't look, and then we'll probably find them. So I go into the freezer and open up the freezer, put my hand in his ice bucket that's there, and pull out his dentures.
Yep.
It's like, why are the dentures in the ice tray? I don't know. But, and I've discovered through the years, that's happened to a lot of people, is that the dentures wind up in the ice tray. So, I don't know. It's crazy. But there's a lot. And one thing, too, I mean, sometimes you have to adjust what you think is funny, and you just have to look and find the funny and let yourself laugh. I took my mom and my mother-in-law both to go to the doctor. And so we went to the doctor's office, and we got there and everything, and I was stressed trying to get the two of them around because, one with Alzheimer's, one with vascular dementia, and so you get one fully dressed and set her on the couch, and while you're getting the other one dressed, that one's pulled all her clothes off and, is going somewhere else, and so then you're trying to dress her, and the other one's doing it, and I'm like, So I finally, and that's part of why I developed this other clothing system, because my little mother-in-law was just a quick change artist. She had to change all the time, constantly. So we finally, it was something else. But we finally get to the doctor's office, and we're sitting down we sit in the waiting room, and you just sit down and then just exhale, because we made it. We did good. It's like we're here. Both of them have glasses on. Both of them are fully clothed. They both have shoes on, and when I was thinking they both have shoes on, and I looked down, I noticed that my mother had two different shoes on. And then before my initial response is, oh my gosh, how could I do this? I messed up. And then I thought, no, you know what? This is a win. We got here fully dressed with teeth, on time, and glasses. It's a win. So
Yep.
So
well,
laugh.
we've all done that, at one time or another. I'll never forget showing up for a networking meeting, and I was getting dressed in the dark because my husband was still asleep, and it was a really early one. And I got there, and I had a dark blue and a black shoe, and I had no idea. And someone goes, "Oh, there's a conversation starter. There's our icebreaker." They look down at my feet, and I'm thinking, and so you would laugh at that. So again, just gotta let it go and have some humor. I mean, you don't want to laugh at them. You want to laugh with them, that this is just a silly thing in life that happens, and you can get stressed out about it, and you can get upset with them. And what good does that do either of you, let alone anybody around you? Or you can just go, wow, this is going to be one to remember, and that's kind of a phrase that I learned for myself, is this is going to be one to remember. And they are some of the most true. And aren't they some of the most precious memories that you have of giving care? They just kind of melt my heart.
You sound like you have one. You sound like you have one of those memories too.
Oh, there's like a million
what is it?
Of them. Well,
I
my
know,
mom, right? We brought my mom up to the cabin, and it was winter, and she got into the foyer. And she slipped somehow, I don't know how, but she was down on the ground. So my daughter was there, who was, I don't know, probably 16, and myself, and my husband was just coming in the door. And my daughter, Danielle, and I are trying to get Grandma up. And I'm like, Mom, just bend your knee. And she looks at me, and she holds up her hand, and with her pointer finger, she bends it, and she goes, okay. like bending her pointer finger is her knee. Now that's not even the funny part. So, we're kind of giggling, and she's giggling, and you want to keep her giggling because I don't want her scared, so you want her in a happy space. So Tom and I are behind her, and we're trying to lift her up, and we've kind of we pulled the rug out from underneath her because that was kind of screwing us up, so we just had a hard floor underneath. And we're trying to lift her up, and her legs are straight. And so as we're lifting them up, she is like walking up the wall. And so I'm yelling at my daughter, kick her knee down, like bop her behind her knee so her leg will drop, And my husband's like, it's not funny. And Danielle and I almost peed my pants. My mom was laughing so hard, but we had to get her up, and we couldn't communicate normally because she couldn't make those movements to her body. And then we got her in a standing position, and I think we all just ran to go to the bathroom because we were laughing so hard. But it was just, that pointer finger bending, going, yep, I'm compliant. I bent my knee. Yep. And, you again, you can't argue with it. You can't get, you can get mad and go, Mom, that's not your knee. Bend your knee and then whack her knee. It's not going to make any difference, and it's not going to improve the situation, and it's not going to move you forward. And so
because there's a disconnect in her brain, and she was trying to make her knees bend when she bent her finger, and it's just it doesn't work correctly. Things don't communicate. They don't convey correctly. It starts from the right side of the brain with the thought that's going out, but then by the time it gets to the mouth, it comes out as something different. And they don't realize a lot of times that they've said a different word. Because my mother-in-law, I went to a drive-thru, and I asked her if she wanted a drink, and she said yes. And I said, what would you like? And she said, I'll have a Dawson Packer. Well, there's not a Dawson Packer, but I know that she loves Dr. Pepper. So I ordered her. I just said, oh, okay, all right. And I just ordered Dr. Pepper because if I'd have pointed out or made a big deal out of the fact that she said the wrong word, it would have stressed her out, upset her, made the disease progress faster. And it accomplishes nothing. So instead, I knew what she was trying to say, so I just acted like she said the right word and ordered it for her. And that all comes from learning your person. Caregivers need to really learn their person, learn their likes and dislikes while they can still communicate it, so that then when you get to the charades point, which I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, when they can't say the words but they're doing the motions, or they, it was just so much fun when they'd smack you and say, you know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, I don't have a clue, So the better you can learn them, the easier your life will be. And I heard a really great tip last week that I'm going to do. It was really pretty awesome. This lady, and I've forgotten who, but she was saying, write a journal about yourself. Write down all the foods that you like and dislike, the drinks you like and dislike, everything. Write down about what TV shows you like to watch, what music you like to listen to, and put it all down and leave it in a book. Because then if you wind up with dementia, you've already written a guidebook on how to take care of yourself. Simple as that.
And it's about not being afraid about doing those things. It's about smart living. You want people to know those things. It's going to make your life better. It's going to make their life so much easier, to have these discussions, put this thought into it, because there is nothing worse than guessing, and then as a care partner, second guessing and third guessing and fourth guessing the decisions that you're making. That adds a lot of stress that just doesn't need to be there. And then also knowing just because they wrote it down doesn't mean it's going to work either. Things are fluid, and so don't give up. Don't make that, well, that's what they said. Well, it's the rest of their knowledge. That's just like we change. And again, I think sometimes people, look at it like, they don't look at it in a reality mode sometimes of life is fluid, and we are constantly adjusting. And just because dementia knocks on your door doesn't mean you should give up that ability to be spontaneous. You know, routines are fine to a point, but when they're causing more stress than comfort, things need to adjust, and it's usually us as care partners, I've found, versus the person with dementia. Yeah,
exactly. So, well, and when I started caregiving, I didn't know that they, by mid-disease, it's like they have binoculars on. Their vision is limited. I wasn't aware of that, and that's how you startle people when you walk up from their blight side, because if you have binoculars around your eyes, you don't have peripheral vision, and they don't. And I didn't realize that, and I didn't realize that they generally catch 1 out of every 4 words.
Exactly.
How hard is that? That's so tough to understand what you're saying, especially if it's an action word. And I just love it. With my mom, I'll say, Mom, let's go to the bathroom, and she'll say, okay, and she doesn't move a muscle. And I'm like, come on, Mom, let's go to the bathroom. Okay.
Yep.
Doesn't move at all.
Yep. But totally thinks she's compliant. Totally thinks she's compliant. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So there's tips and things that you can do that, you know, thank heaven. I've learned a lot now. I wish I would have known it at the beginning. I could have been a much better caregiver for my dad, particularly, and also for my mother-in-law. But at least I know now. So I'm helping Mom.
Well, but, you know, part of this learning journey, though, too, I am really, really grateful for, because it allows people to get creative and create services, products, and tools that maybe we wouldn't do if we thought everyone else had it figured out.
True. That is true.
And so I don't think we would be as progressive if we didn't feel lost, if we didn't allow that creative part of us to go, gosh, I think there's a better way, or boy, I realized I learned this and it was really, really helpful. And, you know, maybe someone else could use this as well. That's one of the things that I love even about doing the show here, is getting people to understand that what they learn is powerful and someone else out there needs their knowledge. Because so often I think both people living with dementia and their care partners, they kind of poo-poo that they know anything because they feel so overwhelmed with all the stuff they don't know. They're not looking at all the stuff they've learned. And that's what I love about, like, Dementia Map, which you are part of, our global resource directory, is getting people to share, because everybody learns at different levels in different ways. And so we need multiple sources in order to grow and do better. Gosh, I can't believe we've only got about 7 minutes to go. These shows always go so fast when we're having fun conversations like this. Why don't you tell us what you're doing now? Because I know you're doing some coaching and consulting, and then maybe if there are a few tips or wishes that you want care partners to know about as well.
Okay, yes. I've gotten my certification through Teepa Snow. If you don't know about her, she's amazing. She has tons and tons of YouTube videos and everything else that are so helpful for caregivers. So I got my caregiving certification through her, and then consulting certification. And then I have my certified advocate as well to help with caregiving needs. And so then I do speeches. I do a lot of those, traveling around and speaking to typically senior groups, whoever has the need, you know, book clubs as well, to generate awareness. And like one I did a couple of days ago was just on caregiver tools that you need. And so I started off with what I thought, but then opened it up for questions, and I wound up going completely different directions because I want to meet the needs of those people that I come in contact with. And my website is thepurplevine.com, and I named it the Purple Vine, purple because it's the Alzheimer's color, and it's also my favorite color, so it worked out well. But a vine because with my training background, I'm used to a linear process, and I'm used to a step-by-step. And you do A and then B and then C. With dementia, that's all out the window. You go forward, 2 steps forward, 1 back, 1 curves around to the right, and then you're curving to the left like a vine. So a vine twists and curves and goes different directions. And so that's why I named it the Purple Vine, and also because I didn't want to be pigeonholed into just doing one type of book or something like that, because as you noted, I have a wide variety because I'm trying to meet the needs, and we have more than just one need out there. There's a lot of different needs. Mm-hmm. And so I try to listen to those that I come in contact with and find out what their needs are, and then find a way to meet that need. Mm-hmm. And you said, what do I wish caregivers knew? I wish that they knew that they are not alone. Resources are available. Dementia Map that you mentioned has tons of great resources out there. The Alzheimer's Association has a website with a lot of, they do more of the steps and stages and things like that, not so much of the practical. My blog has practical tips, and if somebody's on my mailing list through the newsletter on my website, then you'll get once a week updates and just general information, general tips and pointers and things. And then I guess I think the main thing is that I mentioned earlier that your person, your care receiver, is not trying to give you a hard time. And I just say that again because I've had several people lately tell me that they're doing this to spite me. They're mm-hmm. not. That tells me that this is a person who does not understand how dementia works. They're doing the best that they can. Their brain is working so much harder than ours. They have to, when you walk into a room, they don't immediately know who you are. They're discerning the shape, figuring out it's a person, figuring out if they know the person, trying to identify who you are. And then you're talking and moving and asking them to do something, and they're trying to figure out what it was you said and what it is that you want them to do. This is why they need extra sleep. Their brains are just churning, working in overtime, they want to be compliant, but they can't understand you. So if we use more rhythm, because your rhythm is more retained. So rock back and forth, imitate the motion that you want them to do. If you're going to brush their hair, hold the brush right straight in front of them first so they can see it. Remember I told you about the binocular vision. They can't see it mm-hmm. if you've got it way off to the side somewhere. And then they're startled when you all of a sudden grab a hold of their pants when they said it was okay, for you to help them. They didn't understand what you said. So mimic, model the behavior first in front of them so they can see, and that's easier for them to understand. You almost have to think about it like you're playing charades all the time. Mm-hmm. But that's the easiest way to communicate with someone with dementia. And then call me. That's what I'd like them to do. If I can help, if you need a personal consultation, if you need one-on-one advice, if you, whatever the need, just, let me know, and don't suffer in silence. There's lots of ways, even if it's difficult conversations, I can help you with learning how to have those too. So help is available. Don't suffer in silence.
That's really good advice. And I know sometimes it's really hard when you're feeling really down to reach out, but people are so compassionate, and they understand that you're depressed or you're angry because they've been there. Yes. They've been there. They get those emotions. So it's nothing that you have to hide. Granted, you don't want those emotions to come out and hurt yourself or anyone else. And so that's one of the things that I have learned with this group is so compassionate, so understanding, mm-hmm. and so supportive, because everyone's kind of been there, done that, get that, understand that it is maybe not normal aging, but it is the new normal that you're living within. So, again, people can go to thepurplevine.com. She is also on LinkedIn under Debbie Compton. And then Facebook, you can find her on caregiving.book. And Pinterest, she is on as Compton1788. To our listeners, I want to thank you all, and I hope you like, click, and share. I think this was just a fun, wonderful conversation, and I hope that you found great resources and comfort in our conversation today. Again, Debbie, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much for having me on, Lori. Thank you.
Wonderful. And feel free to, again, go to dementiamap.com for additional resources, or check out alzheimersspeaks.com. We've updated it, so we do have one full page that's just loaded with free educational resources as well. And again, a big, big thank you to Debbie and what she has done with her life and this mission to help the rest of us, walk this path in a gracious way. I just kudos to you. So check out her website, thepurplevine.com. Bye, everyone. Take care.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesti here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.